But what MSNBC is trying to do now is essentially put out propaganda that, oh no, it's Russia again. That's why Joe Biden isn't catching on. That's why Joe Biden is shrinking in the polls. And all you got to do is look at the next part of that Joy Reid interview.
So just to put you back in your FBI hat again, if you think about 2016, you think about now. From my outside looking in, perspective, it appears that the Tulsi Gabbard, Joe Biden sort of dichotomy sounds very similar to the either Bernie Sanders or Jill Stein versus Hillary Clinton dichotomy. It feels like the Russians are running the same game, only now Biden is Hillary and Tulsi Gabbard is Jill Stein/Sanders.
Right. So it's slightly different in 2020 only because President Trump is the incumbent this time. So for them, it's secure the base, split the opposition, just like a political campaign. And so from Putin's perspective, sure, he would love to see Trump in there. And to get that outcome, well, you go against the biggest challengers, to Trump, and you try and prop up people that are divisive or splitting the opposition on the Democratic side. So this would be populist candidates on the political left. With that, though, interestingly, one of our next posts will be about President Trump and how they talk about him. And so the theory that kind of is repeated in the press, which isn't always true, is that, yeah, they are pro-candidate Trump, but they're not always pro-President Trump.
They mock him.
They mock him. Yeah. So it's interesting to watch in their media. On the same day, they'll say, well, President Trump is kind of the greatest candidate ever, but we don't like what he's doing in Syria or Ukraine. Yeah. It's not as straightforward as people might think.
Yeah, I don't think it's respect for Trump that's driving Russia. I think he's useful. I want to talk a little bit about the Kamala Harris as well, because one of the key ways that Russia attacked the last election was by trying to induce progressive, younger African-American voters to not vote, to stand down on Donald Trump. There seems to be a really a concerted effort to paint Harris as a villain to African-Americans. Is that still happening?
Yeah, so what's interesting from Russia's perspective, I think they're more concerned with Harris as a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, which is a part of the Russia investigation, right? And that's where her name will pop up, even in the past if you go into their media. But more interesting is really how they will always continue to play on race, ethnicity, religion, socioeconomic status as a driver, as a wedge. And so what you look at with the sort of populist bent, whether it was 2016 or 2020, they're going to try and help drive those wedges. The difference in 2020, both politically and socially, is that the Russians really don't have to create anything at this point. Americans are doing all the work for them. They're not creating any of these wedges at this point. What I can say, having watched this 2 different times, is what could Russia do to America that America isn't doing to itself? And they mostly just repurpose our content now and send it back to us.
And just send it right back to us. Clint Watts, great to talk to you. Thank you.
I just can't with these people. So what was funny to me was Joy Reid said, it's almost like Joe Biden is Hillary. So, like, in terms of the Russians, it's just moving chess pieces. So, the Russian game that they're playing, it was Hillary in 2016. Now it's Joe Biden replacing Hillary. And it was Bernie and Jill Stein in 2016. And now Russia's game, they're making it Tulsi. Replace Russia with the Democratic Party. Because it's not Russia inserting these pieces and making and pushing a game of the same old figures. The Democratic Party, in their infinite wisdom and corruption, have replaced Hillary Clinton with Joe Biden, thinking that's going to be the winner. And the Democratic Party is replacing their propaganda against Bernie Sanders and Jill Stein with Tulsi Gabbard. In MSNBC's world, it's Russia has this almighty power to they're propping up Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard and bringing down Joe Biden. It's comical at this point. I would argue, again, I'm not saying Russia isn't trying things. I'm not saying it's a good thing when foreign countries push fake Facebook pages and propaganda. We do it also, so let's stop the nonsense that we are so democratic and sanctimonious, and holier than now. We do this in country after country. Digital media interference. The Pentagon is doing propaganda on Twitter. On you. The Pentagon, if you've read about this in previous months, has been putting out propaganda through social media. So we're supposed to believe from Joy Reid that the reason Tulsi is excelling, the reason she's been in 4 out of 5 debates, the reason she has all this support, is qualifying in the polls, is qualifying via donations, is because the Russians are at it again. Thank you, Osama Kasem, $20 in the super chat. So the U.S., who armed rebels, Timber Sycamore, never had the authorization to be in Syria and are occupying their oil fields somehow, is a Russian plot. Harris is bad because of her bad policies. McCarthy 2.0 is alive and well. I got to agree. I agree. And by the way, you know, she added in at the end of that, like Russia had this very strong influence in keeping African Americans, younger African Americans, from voting. It had nothing to do that Hillary Clinton called black people super predators, maybe. Had nothing to do with Hillary Clinton's husband created mass incarceration in this country by signing the crime bill. Granted, Hillary Clinton wasn't a politician. It's not her fault what her husband did, but she supported it as First Lady, the crime bill. That had nothing to do with young black people not voting for Hillary Clinton and staying home. It was Russia. By the way, how I know this is ridiculous is they were saying that Russia influenced people to go to Standing Rock. As somebody who was at Standing Rock, freezing my ass off for 6 months on and off, I promise you, Russia had nothing to do with at one point, 15,000 people were in Cannonball, North Dakota.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.